Hello and welcome to the Syndicated Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor, here today to continue our discussion of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, episodes 29 through 32. We are actually about, after this podcast, we will be halfway there. We have the halfway point through Season 1, which is the longest season. Typically, they're about 40 episodes, which means we would almost be done at this point. But this one, in particular one, is 64 episodes. So we're definitely got our work cut out for us on this one. So we will start here with the Island of Illusion Part 2. Finish that little two-parter up, and then work our way through some one-shots because we don't have another two-parter until the next podcast. I think we'll start the next two-parter. So we start off with fucking Quagmire. If you've listened to the last podcast, you know I got a little bit of disdain for the Quagmire character in this two-parter. It seems just really unnecessary. Like, the things he's saying, they could have come to that conclusion themselves, that they're disappearing or, because they're losing their confidence. And then after the first time, he just keeps coming back, which we'll talk about, and saying it again and again and again, but he's not needed for that. And he always, just the way he always talks and rhymes and just poofs around the goddamn, it's super, super annoying. So they ask Quagmire for help. And he's like, basically, you must think positive to not die. So Zach thinks positive instead of freaking out over the snake, and he doesn't disappear. And meanwhile, Alpha is furiously trying to get them back from the Island of Illusion, but he's just constantly getting zapped by the control panel, which causes him to kind of short circuit. And then Kim sees an illusion, a Bulk and Skull with like halos on their heads, like helping it looked like a frog into a new home or whatever. And she's like, if Rita can make Bulk and Skull good, she can do anything. And I'm like, really? Like, your worst fear is Bulk and Skull changing? Like, that's kind of a dick move, Like, yeah, like, they're not super nice people, but like, they're not horrible. It was kind of dumb. I mean, it was fun to see Bulk and Skull doing that little bit, but like, really, of all the things to be afraid of, like, that's the thing that you're afraid of. Kind of an odd choice. So now Kim starts to disappear, and Quagmire shows up and tells her, if she has fear, she shall disappear. So, think positive thoughts. And so she does. And we see a little clip show of her fighting the Terror Toad, just like we saw Zach fighting the... Hell, that was a long time ago. In one of the early episodes. Basically, this is an excuse to have a lazy episode. Like, we're just going to show a little bit of footage with the Rangers and Quagmire. And then we're just going to splice in other episodes' footage. And we don't have to hardly film any new things. So that happens. Kim comes back. Now Tommy thinks this one was actually good. Like, of all the things that they were afraid of and started disappearing, this one was good because Tommy just sees everyone as a putty. So he's like fighting everyone. I'm like, that for an illusion thing is actually really good. But this is the only good one they really have. So he starts to disappear. And then now we see Tommy battling it out with villains and having stock footage, and he comes back. And meanwhile, it's just showing Rita, like, just having a conversation about, like, watching them in the island, like, oh, we'll get them. And it's like, okay, the Rangers are busy, right? Why aren't you attacking the city with New Titus? Like, why are you just kind of hanging out, waiting to see what happens? Like, the whole point that you haven't conquered Earth yet is because the Power Rangers are always there to stop you. They're not on Earth right now. Wouldn't this be the perfect time to launch, an attack? But she doesn't do that because that would be, easy. And it makes too much sense. It's kind of like Rita works at Honda and she wants things to just not make sense. So Trini is afraid of being next. She's like, oh no, I'm next, so I better start disappearing. And it's like, what is that even? Like I said, some of this is really lazy. Like, even the new footage is just kind of lazy, right? Because Quagmire's essentially just saying the same thing. And Trini's like, well, guess it's my turn to start disappearing. Hey, guys, let's think positive thoughts. And she thinks positive thoughts. And then Billy gets afraid. And then he starts disappearing. And he has to think positive thoughts about when he fought Madame Woe. And now the Jason one that happens next actually would make sense that Jason would have this fear. He's afraid of letting everyone down because his illusion is everyone's starting to disappear. And he's like, no, I let them all down. Like Tommy's, that one was pretty good. Not as good as Tommy's, but it was good. Why couldn't the rest of them be that thought out? Like, some of Zach's kind of made sense, I guess, because they kind of established his fear of, creepy crawlies. It was still a little lazy in retrospect, but, Trini is afraid of being next. And Billy's afraid because science didn't help. Like, it's fair. It was not good. So then the Quagmire comes in. They're all feeling good about themselves. Then their morphers reappear. They have confidence. So Rita just picks up the island like it's a small, model. Again, this episode, man, it's a fucking, the first part was actually really good, right? With the Rangers, Zords being beat and everything, and New Titus and all that business. Like, the first part was really good. And then this part, very lazy and really confusing. So they morph into action because now they're not on the Island of Illusion anymore. And the Zords are not dead. And so they make Mecha Dragon Zord and sends a Z-beam to defeat New Titus. And the reason why there's a Z on the beam, is because the stock footage obviously comes from Super Sentai Zoo Ranger, and for some things they couldn't quite take all the lettering off of, or they try to hide the Zoo Ranger symbols as much as they can, but you can see it on Dragon Zord's knees, the Z's, and the beam. You couldn't hide that either. So, but it's the Z beam, because they don't know it stands for Zoo Ranger. Then they get the Ultra Zord and defeat Lokar, but it's established he got away. This giant head in the sky is hiding. So I guess he's established for later. And then we cut to Bulk and Skull at the breakdance competition, with full beanies and stereotypical kind of stuff there. It's a fun little show. Then Zach shows up, rocks it completely, and he wins, and he's confident, and he looks over, and Quagmire is the DJ? And it's not, I thought he was just someone within the Island of Illusion? Again, this episode, man, made no fucking sense at all. So then we move on to episode 30, The Rockstar. So, Jason establishes early in the episode that his cousin Jeremy is coming, and he wants to spend some time with him. Also, Tommy not in this episode at all. Not even established why he's not there. So Trini makes brownies, and it turns out they have snail in them. Why? I don't know. But it seems like everyone's getting ready to go somewhere, but that doesn't really come into play because everybody but Tommy is in this episode. And basically, Rita wants the Mirror of Destruction because it can destroy super putties, which that's not that hard to do. The Rangers have been destroying super putties for a few episodes now. It's not uncommon anymore. But apparently that was supposed to be a big deal. We see Bulk and Skull eating a Sloppy Joe pizza, which does not really sound all that appetizing, but they're eating. And then Bulk wants to fight Jason in front of his cousin, but Jason just trips him and he falls into the pizza. And this kid actor that's playing Jason's cousin, not a bad actor, especially in comparison to a lot of the kids we've been getting on the show. Kid's not bad. But he's like, man, Jason, like, you're the coolest. I want to be just like you. And so Jason's teaching him, martial arts shit. Lots of tornado kicks and front kicks. Like Tommy's spin kick is his thing. Jason's, it's the tornado kick. And he's like, man, I want to be just like you. And like, I wish this would have come full circle. And again, I know at the time, Power Rangers was not a story like based show, right? But wouldn't it have been really cool if, like, I don't know how long it would have taken, but whenever this kid is a teenager, right, he ends up becoming the Red Ranger of that team. Like, wouldn't that be, like, to come full circle and have him still be like Jeremy, like the Jason's cousin, and then you can kind of introduce Jason later, and he finds out, like later on, like when he becomes a Ranger, that Jason was the Red Ranger the whole time. Like, wouldn't that have been like fucking badass storytelling? Again, I know that was not the goal here. And I know even if they did do that, most of the people watching probably wouldn't get the reference. But I want it to happen, damn it. I mean, this kid's probably like 40 now, but he could still be a Red Ranger, damn it. So the putties arrive, and both Jeremy and Jason fight them. And Jeremy does a decent job for being an untrained kid fighting these putties. Again, wished his Ranger thing could have happened. This kid, decent fighter with choreography, and he's not a bad actor. Like, why didn't we cast him later? It seemed lazy that we didn't, right? So he finds this bottle, which apparently contains a map to the Mirror of Destruction. So he opens it, and an earthquake happens for some reason. And then we meet the monster of the week, who is Rockstar, like a rock kaiju. He just shoots rocks, okay? And so he shoots these heavy rocks that land on Jason. It has like the Thor's hammer effect. Like for some reason, like the person can't lift them off of them. So Jason's laying on the ground, and everybody shows up and gets the rocks off. So apparently only gets the rocks off. Apparently everyone, like, if you get hit with the rocks, anyone else can pick them up, which makes it kind of useless if you're fighting two people, right? So they free Jason. And Jeremy left with the map. So Billy goes to find him while everyone else morphs into action. And they're like by a pool. It's like a big ass pool by the beach. But at first, like, I just saw them by like rafters. And I was like, are they at SeaWorld? In Japan? Because, stock footage. But no, it's just a really nice pool area. So they're fighting Rockstar at the pool. And he shoots more heavy rocks and actually lands Zach and Trini in the pool. So, like, the rocks make them, like, start drowning. And I'm like, damn, that was a calculated assault that we don't normally see in Power Rangers. Like, you fucking tried to murder those people. But, it doesn't work out that way. We're not going to get that morbid. Scorpina leaves Rockstar to the business. And the putties are chasing Jeremy as he's looking for this mirror, but he doesn't really know what it is that he's looking for. We get some cool beach fights, you know? We got, like, rangers, like, running across the beach, like, Baywatch style, fucking kicking people and shit. It looks real. I always like when they do interesting set pieces. I like when things are, change. You know, it's not just an open field kind of fight. You know what I'm saying? And they can't really land a hit on the Rockstar. So Jeremy finds the Mirror of Destruction and opens it and destroys a putty. And then Rockstar shows up, and you're like, oh shit, he's going to get captured. And then he just opens it and destroys Rockstar. So we didn't even have to have Rockstar be destroyed by the Zords. Jeremy killed him. And again, this kid couldn't have come back later. So the Rangers start fighting Scorpina, while Jeremy's like, you know what? I don't want this mirror. I don't want to open it up and destroy people. But I'm like, Jeremy, there are villains everywhere. Maybe you shouldn't just ditch this thing, right? So Scorpina gets her hands on it, and she grows. So they call the Megazord out. And Goldar is holding the Megazord. She opens up the mirror, but almost hits Goldar with it because it's hard to train who you're hitting with it. So Goldar almost fucking dies. So they get the power sword. They power slash, which apparently never kills Goldar or Scorpina. So, they defeat the villains of the day. And Jeremy is just having a ball. He's talking about, like, oh my God, I got to meet the Power Rangers, and this happened, and this happened. And Jason, where were you? Oh, well, I was caught up with other things. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So he's basically telling the Power Rangers about the Power Rangers. But, no one can know their identities. And there's a lot of ego stroking. Like, he's like, man, the Pink Ranger was so cool. And Kim's like, oh, really? Tell us more. And Zach's like, no, tell us about the Black Ranger. I like him. And then Jason's like getting ready to leave. And he's like, but the Red Ranger was the best. And he's like, oh, really? Tell me about this Red Ranger who's so cool. It was a fun little end to the episode, especially because, it's an interesting episode because the monster of the week was beaten by a child. But it's better than Quagmire and the Island of Illusion. So that brings us to episode 31, Calamity Kimberly. So basically, Kim starts off having a super bad day. She falls out of bed. Her clothes got ruined. It's raining. There's an earthquake. Her breaks a mirror. And you think, like, Rita has something to do with this? Like, put a spell on her of sorts? No, this is literally just what's happening to her in her day. I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity. But Rita does make the Samurai Fan Man. Not entirely sure why that was a creation. It's just a stereotypical looking samurai kaiju with a giant fan. Yeah. So Kim's shitty day is getting worse. She's all wet. Tommy's kind of cracking jokes about it. Bulk and Skull show up, and Skull actually has a really good line here, where he's like, oh, is this what you meant when you had to go wash your hair instead of going out with me? And I'm like, that's hilarious. That's actually a pretty clever one. And Bulk and Tommy get into it, but Tommy pushes him, and he slides into a mop bucket. And Tommy's like, those two, they should get their own show. And I'm like, they should get their own show. That's what I've been saying this whole time. They should be getting their own show. So Kim and Tommy are kind of walking and talking and about to have a little romantic scene until the Samurai Fan Man shows up. And he sucks Kimberly into this jar and knocks Tommy unconscious. So actually decent go for this villain so far. And inside the jar, it's just kind of damp. Like, there's a little bit of water on the floor, and, like, that's it. Kind of a base setting, I guess. So everybody else is training, and they are immediately sent to the exposition machine. And Tommy is out of commission because, footage. But at least they actually, like, gave him a reason to be out of commission. He's unconscious. We saw that happen. Fucking in the Rockstar, he's just not there. There's no explanation to why. He's just not there. And it's like, okay, that's a little lazy, right? Like, even the times where he's like, hey, guys, I'm going to go fuck off for a while. At least they made an attempt to be like, Tommy's not going to be here for a minute. But in the last episode, they act like he was never fucking there. Like, it almost makes me think they filmed it before they even did the Green with Evil part. And then we're like, shit, we need to air this episode, like, soon. Because, again, there's no mention of the Green Ranger, and the Dragon Zord never shows up in this either. Or the Ultra Zord. So everybody morphs into action, except for Tommy. And then Goldar arrives with the Fan Man. And the Fan Man fucking punches Trini in the face. Like, usually they, like, slash and they do, like, a spark thing across their chest. But he literally just walks up and just fucking punches her in the face. It's like, Jesus Christ. This guy's for real. And he starts doing this fan. I call it the Sparky fan because every time he waves it, all these little sparks come out of it. And they basically, it's just everyone on wires getting blown away. Like, whoa. It's a little over the top. It's a little goofy. And in the footage, when they're, like, getting blown away, it's clearly the Zoo Rangers because they're not in their costumes. They're not in the Ranger outfits. It's the Zoo Rangers in, like, their colored, fighting garbs. And you could clearly see that. So I'm like, did they think that was Ranger footage? Like, what the hell? It doesn't make sense why you would use that footage at all, right? Same thing with the whole Green with Evil thing using the outline of Barai. Why would you use the Japanese actor outlines thinking that... I mean, yes, I guess the average, like, 5-year-old watching this is not going to pay attention to that. Or even know to look for that. But still, it's kind of glaringly obvious. Like, even if you didn't know there was a Japanese version of the show, right? You'd still be like, that's not Tommy. Or, like, in this case, you'd be like, who are those people? You know? So the putties, basically, Rangers get beat for a minute, and then they have to go find the Fan Man at a putty restaurant. So apparently the putties have a restaurant that the villains all eat at? Very strange, because we've only really seen Rita's palace. We haven't really seen if there's more to it, and apparently there's a restaurant in there. And Squat's like shaking the jar that Kimberly's in to kind of piss her off. But the Rangers decide to crash that motherfucking lunch. And the Fan Man just starts throwing explosive spikes. Because that's another power that he has. He's got a decent arsenal. He just doesn't look all aesthetically pleasing, right? So he grows. The monster grows. And they... In the stock footage that they show here, you can clearly see the Zoo Rangers' bikes, because they all have colored bikes that have the Ranger helmets on the front and in the background. And we haven't established that at all in the show yet. So it's like kind of... I mean, again, it's in the background. Most people aren't going to pay attention to that, but it's just something I noticed. It's not something I even find lazy. I'm just like, man, they should really introduce those bikes soon, because those look really cool. So they call the Dinosaurs. And Goldar just starts beating the Tyrannosaur's ass. I mean, just, because Goldar, works to various effects. Sometimes he gets beat up. But I guess at this point, in Season 1 of Mighty Morphin, he's still fairly intimidating. Whereas, we'll talk about when we get to Seasons 2 and 3 and 4, not so much, right? There's only so many times you can fight a guy and you be afraid of him, right? So Tommy wakes up, morphs into action, calls the Dragon Zord, puts it in battle mode. And the drill staff fucks up the Fan Man's jar, and Kim gets free. She morphs, gets her Zord. And as the Fan Man charges, the Megazords power slashes him. But Sparky Fan fucks with the Power Sword. So both the Megazord and the Dragon Zord are getting, kind of whooped on for a minute. So they call the Ultra Zord, completely obliterate the Fan Man, and Goldar's like, shit, I gotta leave. So he gets out of there. The Rangers win. Then we get more news footage of people talking about the Power Rangers. And Kim breaks the TV, establishing that, yes, she just had bad luck. It had nothing to do with Rita at all. Again, not a bad episode. Had some fun stuff. The Fan Man was a formidable villain, and I always like when that's a thing, right? Tommy had a reason to fuck off for most of the episode. We got a little bit more Kimberly, because we haven't gotten a lot of her lately. All in all, not a bad one. And then this brings us to the last episode we're going to be talking about in this edition of the podcast. Episode 32, A Star is Born. And no, not the Lady Gaga Bradley Cooper movie. Episode 32 of Power Rangers. So Tommy is trying out for a karate commercial. And Bulk is also going for the same part. And so he's like, show me your moves, Tommy. And Tommy actually doesn't spin kick the hell out of this. And actually does a very nice standing backflip. I was like, very, very good job, Jason David Frank. Sarita in this episode, for some reason, is like, yeah, I'm tired. I'm going to take a nap. Goldar, you take over. So we get like Goldar running things like Squat and Babu did in the other episodes. So Skull is like, they go to the beach because all the other Rangers are going to the beach. Tommy's like, no, I got to do this commercial. So again, gives a reason why Tommy would fuck off for most of the episode. Makes a lot of sense. Like that they took time to plan that out. But Bulk and Skull show up at the beach, and Skull is like carrying all the equipment because of course Bulk would make him carry it. And he tells Skull to put all the suntan lotion on it, and he like just squirts it all out onto him, like explodes. But it doesn't even look like lotion. It looks like cottage cheese, kind of. So he decides to use mayo because he doesn't have any lotion left. And so Bulk ends up with a horrible sunburn and probably also smells awful right before the audition. And when Bulk shows up for the audition, he has the denim vest over the karate garb. So he's got the white karate suit and denim over it. Very 90s touch. So Bulk goes in. He's doing like quick chops, like It kind of looks like what me and my friend Rich would do at work, like when we would always like yell out karate noises while we were building cars. That's kind of what this looks like with Bulk, just being like and he's like throwing papers in the air, like that's impressive, and he's just like doing quick arm movements because he can't really get his legs up that high. And they're like, we think we got our guy. And he's like, see, Tommy, they got their guy. So everyone else at the beach gets attacked by Scorpina and the putties. So they morph in action. And Scorpina has a pet worm. She has a wormpool. And the wormpool uses string shot, which puts the Rangers in this tube. And this tube is then set down the river. They call it a cocoon, but it's just a fucking tube, okay? Meanwhile, we see Tommy's audition. Lots of spin kicks. He's been saving up for the spin kicks. But he does a lot of other cool stuff too, but he did like 7 spin kicks. It was a little much. And so since he's doing this audition, he's not answering his communicator. Again, valid reason to why he's not showing up yet. But they blast out of the cocoon with their blasters and get to the Zords. And that's when Goldar calls upon the monster of the week. A bit late for that, honestly. Babe Ruthless. Oh boy, that's a bad name. So Goldar, Scorpina, and Babe Ruthless all show up to fight. They grow. Babe Ruthless is like, batter up! Try my curveball! And I'm like, oh, fuck. All these baseball puns. And the individual Zords are actually landing blows on Scorpina, Goldar, and Babe Ruthless. Tommy finally gets the call, morphs over, gets the Dragon Zord to shoot missiles everywhere. And then he puts the Dragon Zord into Mega Mode. And he's like, looks at like we're looking at a whole new ball game. And I'm like, shit, more fucking baseball puns. So the Dragon Zord battle, he fucks up all three villains. And then Jason didn't know he could do this, but he sends the Tyrannozord into auto mode and jumps in the Dragon Zord with everybody else. And when the Babe Ruthless hits a baseball, Tyrannozord tail lifts it back at him. And he's like, we're in the bottom of the ninth, trying to get a home run. And I'm like, stop with the fucking... You're not the villain. Why are you shouting all the baseball jokes? So the drill staff it drills a hole through Babe Ruthless. Like, actually shows viscera in this a little bit. Drills a hole to the villain. Boom, he's dead. So Scorpina grows her pet Wurmple. So we got a giant Wurmple. Uses string shot again on all the dinosaurs. But the missiles from the Dragon Zord and the tail manage to cut the cocoon. Then we get Mega Dragon Zord, and the Z-Beam completely destroys the Wurmple. We're done here. Tommy came in. We got 2 monsters of the week here. Kind of makes up for having the bad Island of the Illusion. We got 2 monsters, and they weren't terrible. The baseball puns were a bit much, but overall not bad. And the Z-Beam is really cool to see. I like, that we can use all the different Zord forms now. It's not always just the Mega Zord with the Power Slash, We got the Dragon Zord, we got the Dragon Zord in battle mode, we got the Mega Dragon Zord, we got the Ultra Zord. Got a lot of cool shit happening, right? And then the news footage calls them the Incredible Power Rangers. And I'm like, so first it was the Amazing Power Rangers, now it's the Incredible Power Rangers. Not once did they call them the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And then Rita is yelling at Goldar, like, I'm never putting you in charge again, even though, like, you decided to take the nap. It's kind of your fault. So then Bulk's like, I got the commercial. And then the commercial airs. And it's like, if you don't go to this karate school, you could end up looking like this. And it's Bulk's, audition tape. And he's like, but if you go to our karate school, you could look like this. And then it's Tommy's audition tapes. Basically, Bulk's like the before, and Tommy's the after photo. So Bulk basically gets embarrassed again. Tommy looks great. And, nice little end of the episode. That was a really solid episode. So, yeah, I like Island of Illusion, Part 2, pretty shitty. Rockstar was pretty good. Mostly for the the out-of-suit stuff, like with the Cousin Jeremy and stuff. Like, one of the first times I enjoyed most of the just normal people part of the episode, right? Calamity Kimberly was okay. And then A Star is Born, I thought was fantastic. Thought it was a great episode. Definitely would recommend that. If you want to watch Season 1 of Mighty Morphin, but you want to, just watch the relevant stuff, watch A Star is Born. Of all 4 of these episodes, I'd say watch A Star is Born and The Rockstar. I wouldn't recommend Calamity Kimberly if you watch Island of Illusion Part 1, which I do recommend, I guess you'd want to finish it, but just be warned, it's not great. So with that being said, that puts an end at this version of this particular installment of the podcast. Stay tuned next time we cover episodes 33 through 36. Trekking our way through Season 1. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. We got plenty of podcasts coming in the aforementioned year. It's going to be a very busy time for me, and I'm very excited to be sharing all of this with you. With that being said, stay safe, stay nerdy. I'm Mac Taylor. Until next time.